Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flow Over Fear. And today, I am going to recap the interview I just had with Kassy LaBorie. Kassy is a keynote speaker. She's an author who's written 2 books and is also an expert and consultant in the field of virtual training, how at our job places, at our workplaces and jobs and careers, how we experience life in the virtual world, which has certainly become topical within the last few years, has it not? Since the lockdowns of COVID, many people, if not most of us, were sent home and went home to start working in this new way, which was virtually. And we did so. It disrupted, regardless of how we feel about it, whether we like that idea of working from home or working remotely or not, it certainly disrupted the way that we work. Not as many in-person meetings, more online meetings, more Zoom, more Teams, things like that. And the result was a lot of fear. I think there was a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, not just from the people who had to be sent home, but from the leaders that were running these organizations and having to do their business online. For me personally, running a company of about 150 people, it was certainly one of the scariest things that I have experienced. Was in the middle of March, roughly about 3 years ago. We were staring down this virus that we didn't understand, and we found that we were being locked down. We were sent home. We were having to close our doors at our businesses, and within our particular company, we were running an essential business. So we had drivers on the road. We had people delivering products to treatment plants, to water treatment plants, to facilities. So there were essential people that were working within our organization that I had to send out to work. That was certainly one of the bigger challenges, was not knowing the risks. But there were also the people that had to go home, and we had to start to very quickly, overnight, understand the technology we were using and implement it and start working in a different way. And this wasn't unique. This was the experience of many companies. And for somebody like Kassy was already immersed in that world. This was already Kassy's world, this online world, which she had been working in since 1999. That's when she got into the tech industry. That's where she saw her first advertisement for something that was something that would allow us to communicate in a new way. She saw a commercial with RuPaul in a Super Bowl commercial that was for WebEx, and I think the meeting, the tagline of the commercial was "Meetings are a real drag." So play on words, 1999, and that got her kind of thinking about getting into that world, and she started to she pursued that career choice. Started working for WebEx, and as she was there, the first transformation, that first uptick in our virtual communication happened in around 2001. If we remember, there was a tech crash within the early 2000s, but also 9/11 happened in 2001. And that shut down travel for a period of time. And so that was the first overnight situation where people began to communicate a little bit more remotely. And certainly at that point, the technology wasn't there as it is now yet to have a real shift. But even over the next course of those many years, she was living immersed in those worlds of teleconferencing and demonstrating to the world and demonstrating to people and companies that this could be the new way we work in the world. She became a real pioneer on that front, which led to her being the expert that would know the shift once we got to this recent lockdowns due to COVID. And during that time, certainly we all changed the way that we started to live. And so Kassy, in this interview was really great because we covered a lot of different topics, including the fear of working virtually, including the fear of having to run those meetings, including how to deal with Zoom fatigue, which we all get and a lot of the fear that she was talking about related to a couple of different things. It's that we don't know how to use the technology, meaning, we just have to learn the technology. A lot of times we're trying to force a square peg in a round hole. We're trying to conduct our online meetings and our online sessions in the same way that we're conducting our in-person sessions. And we're thinking that it's the technology that's causing the awkwardness or the lack of productivity or the lack of participation. But that's really not it. It's because we're not engaging in the right way and we're not utilizing the tool to its true potential. And thus, we experience this fear, we experience this lack of alignment, and a lot of challenges on that front. I remember that when our company first moved to virtual, we experienced that as well. We experienced a number of people who really liked the change. They liked the idea of going home and working from home. And there were others that didn't. And that was understandable because there are certain things that, for a lot of people, the office was an escape from home life that might not have been positive or a way to feel significant or to feel valuable. And closing down the offices or moving to a virtual may have taken that away. They may have gone from having an office to working at a dining room table, which was a bit of a hit to them, of course. And I know that happened to a lot of people. So a lot of it comes down to the fact that we experienced that fear because we had to learn to use the technology as a tool more effectively. We had to create an environment in which we felt like it was separate, and we had to do it in such a way that technology was not in the way of how we experienced our jobs or our professions or how we performed. A lot had to change, and when change happens, of course, fear happens. And one of those things that we talked about in this interview was the idea that when we made that transition from in-person to virtual, a lot of the boundaries for work went away, meaning we essentially brought work into our homes, which on the surface sounds terrific. I mean, we don't have to commute to an office. We save those 2 hours. We might not have to get up as early. There's some great benefits to that. But what was sacrificed there in a lot of ways was the boundaries to work, meaning we might find ourselves, if we're immersed in work, working 12 hours a day, working when we should be spending time with our family or continuing to work, but not setting those boundaries for ourselves. And that was so one of the fears that we had about sending people home or going home or working from home was that maybe our employees wouldn't be as productive or we wouldn't be able to know if they're working or not. But that ended up not being a lot of the problem. A lot of the problem became people began working too much. And that was causing a lot of stress. They didn't know when to stop. So one of the things Kassy recommended in that regard, which was really powerful, was that we have to know what done looks like for the day. We can't just look at a giant to-do list and think we can get it all done. We have to be really intentional about knowing what done looks like. Be strategic on that front. And that would help us to really improve in that way. And also knowing that when we're working off of Zoom or when we're working off of Teams or whatever these platforms are, knowing that they're just tools. They are not the thing we should be focused on. And in order to make these meetings more fun, more exciting, more productive in a lot of ways, is to not necessarily make the platform the thing. So don't make Zoom the thing. It's not a Zoom meeting. And one of the examples that she made, but make something else the thing. And one of the examples that Kassy brought up was when she was having a meeting and she had gone out and gotten some chocolates that they were going to talk about, a box of chocolates, and they ended up having a chat about these chocolates. And while they had something physical in their hands to talk about and to eat or around, I mean, it's just like having a lunch meeting in person, right? You have the lunch thing, but the problem with online is that we tend to take away the things that make those meetings exciting, like the lunch, like the topic of conversation. We tend to just go to the slides or whatever our specific topic is, instead of bringing in the activities that make it enjoyable. So how do we make it fun? And those are the kinds of things you could think about. One of the ways is making the new tool that we're using more interactive, more part of the process, using digital backgrounds and things like that to demonstrate the points. And she had a very powerful example that she gave for that, which was when she was doing her DISC profile and she was communicating this with the group. She would often make slides of the D, the I, the S, and the C personality traits, and then use those as the digital background, so that when people identified what they were, they could put that as their digital background. Made it more interactive for everybody. And that's one of the ways in which we can make these meetings more fun, more exciting. And of course, we did get into how to reduce that Zoom fatigue that we get into. The idea that a lot of times we are overwhelmed by meetings and by staring at a screen or staring at a camera, and yeah, it is overwhelming. But we have to change. We have to be deliberate on how we're scheduling, and as leaders, we have to grant the freedom for people to experience those breaks and take those time. For one, we can ask people to maybe turn off their camera and turn away from the camera and be able to take notes or do something else or something along that line, so that we're not having to constantly stare at a screen. We might not have to do that. The other thing is to maybe use more of the tools that are in the platforms, like polls or like meters or breakout rooms or things like that, where we can have better engagement. Maybe scheduling meetings for 40 minutes at a time rather than a full hour, so that we're not baking meetings right on top of one another. Kassy has a new poll or a new poll out on her website that you can look at and her website is Kassy Consulting. That's KASSY consulting.com. And there you can find a really cool virtual training quiz that you can take. And on that virtual training quiz, it'll tell you basically what your superpower is, what your virtual training superpower is, so that you can learn a little bit more about yourself and how you can make better and more engaged meetings. So check out her website, check out what she's doing, and she is truly, truly an expert in this field, has been doing it a very long time, and can help you and other leaders to make your meetings more engageable, more engaged, more fun, more exciting, and more productive. So check her out, KassyConsulting.com, and look her up on LinkedIn. That's where she offers a lot of value. And in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks for joining me on Flow Over Fear. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.